The massive council chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with the usual mixture of languages, pheromones, and electromagnetic signals that comprised interspecies communication. Representatives from 47 different civilizations filled the curved amphitheater, their varied forms creating a tapestry of evolution's wildest experiments. At the center podium stood Chancellor Vexhai, her crystalline form catching the artificial starlight that bathed the chamber. "The motion passes," she announced, her voice resonating through translation matrices that converted her harmonic tones into understandable communication for each species present. Effective immediately, humanity's membership in the Galactic Council is suspended pending investigation into their aggressive military expansion. The decision had been building for months. Complaint from various member species painted a picture of humanity as a dangerous, unpredictable force in the galaxy. The Zephyrians claimed humans had established military bases too close to their shipping lanes. The Kelhari reported that human survey ships were mapping systems with unusual thoroughness, behavior they interpreted as preparation for conquest. Most damning of all, the artificial intelligence collective known as the Synth claimed that human computer systems had been probing their networks, testing for weaknesses. Ambassador Sarah Chan sat in the human delegation area, her face carefully neutral as the vote results displayed on screens throughout the chamber. Beside her, military liaison Colonel Marcus Rodriguez maintained the same professional composure that had served him well during his 20-year career. Neither showed any reaction as species after species voiced their support for the suspension. The humans will have 7 standard days to remove all military assets from systems within 50 light-years of Council member territories, Chancellor Vexhai continued. Failure to comply will result in permanent expulsion and potential military action. Sarah stood slowly, her movement drawing attention from across the chamber. At average human height, she was dwarfed by many of the alien representatives, but her presence commanded respect nonetheless. She had served as Earth's primary diplomat for 5 years, navigating the complex web of galactic politics with skill that had earned grudging admiration even from those who distrusted her species. "Honored Chancellor," Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems, "I request permission to address the Council regarding this decision." A ripple of discussion moved through the chamber. The Trilaxian representative, a being that resembled a cross between a praying mantis and a tree, clicked disapproval. "The matter has been decided. There is nothing more to discuss." "I concur," added the Kelhari ambassador, her melodic voice tinged with what humans had learned to recognize as satisfaction. "The evidence against humanity is overwhelming. They pose a clear threat to galactic peace." Sarah remained standing, waiting. Chancellor Vexhai's crystalline form shifted through several color changes before she responded. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Chan. You have 5 minutes." "Thank you, Honored Chancellor." Sarah stepped forward, her hands clasped behind her back in a gesture that projected calm confidence. "The accusations against humanity are based on fundamental misunderstandings of our nature and intentions. What you perceive as aggressive expansion is actually defensive positioning. What you interpret as military buildup is preparation for a threat you refuse to acknowledge." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of protests, clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic bursts. Chancellor Vexhai called for order, her form flashing brilliant white until the noise subsided. "Explain these threats you speak of," demanded the Zephyrian representative, his avian features ruffled with indignation. "We have detected no hostile forces in Council space." Sarah looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes, sensors, and optical organs of dozens of species. "Honored delegates, for the past 2 years, human long-range sensors have detected anomalous readings from the galactic rim. Energy signatures that don't match any known technology. Movement patterns that suggest vast fleets operating in dark space between systems." "Preposterous," scoffed the synth representative, its holographic form flickering with digital disdain. "Our sensor networks span thousands of light years. We would have detected any significant threats." Would you? Colonel Rodriguez spoke for the first time, his gravelly voice cutting through the chamber's acoustics. Your networks are impressive, but they're designed to monitor known shipping lanes and established systems. The signatures we've detected are coming from regions where no council species maintains a presence. The Kelhari ambassador's musical voice carried a note of derision. How convenient that only humans have detected these mysterious threats. Perhaps your sensors are malfunctioning, or perhaps this is an elaborate justification for your military expansion. Sarah felt a familiar frustration building in her chest. The same feeling she'd experienced countless times during her diplomatic career when dealing with species that refused to see beyond their own perspectives. Humanity had tried for months to share their concerns through proper channels, but each attempt had been dismissed or ignored. We offer to share our sensor data, Sarah reminded the council. The synth declined to analyze it. The Zephyrians claimed it was corrupted. The Kelhari suggested it was fabricated. Because it contradicts established science, the Trilaxian representative interjected, his mandibles clicking in agitation. The galactic rim is a dead zone. Nothing could survive there, much less build the massive fleets your data suggests. Colonel Rodriguez leaned forward slightly, his weathered face grim. That's exactly what makes them dangerous. They found a way to operate in conditions we consider impossible. When they're ready to move, they'll have every advantage. The chamber fell silent for a moment, the weight of the colonel's words settling over the assembled delegates. Then the synth representative spoke, its voice carrying digital overtones of dismissal. Even if we accept this fantasy, it changes nothing. Humanity's response has been disproportionate and threatening. Military bases, weapons development, fleet concentrations. These actions destabilize the entire region. Sarah took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would likely seal humanity's fate with the Council. We've been preparing to defend not just human space, but all Council territories. The threat we've detected isn't aimed specifically at humanity. It's aimed at everyone. More unsubstantiated claims. The Kelhari ambassador sang dismissively. You ask us to believe that you've been militarizing for our benefit? How altruistic of a species known for its violent history. The comment stung because it carried truth. Humanity's past was indeed marked by conflict, a fact that had made their acceptance into the Council controversial from the beginning. Every human diplomat had to work against the perception that their species was inherently aggressive and untrustworthy. Our history teaches us to recognize threats that others might miss, Sarah replied carefully. Sometimes that experience is invaluable. Chancellor Vexhai's form shifted to deep blue, indicating her decision was final. The Council has heard humanity's explanation. While we appreciate your concerns, they do not justify the provocative actions that have alarmed multiple member species. The suspension stands. Sarah nodded once, accepting the inevitable. Then, humanity will comply with the Council's decision. We will withdraw our military assets from the designated zones within the required time frame. Furthermore, the Chancellor continued, humanity will cease all military construction and fleet expansion for a period of 5 standard years. Any violation will result in permanent expulsion. This was worse than expected, but Sarah maintained her composure. Understood, honored Chancellor. Will Earth be permitted to maintain diplomatic relations with individual Council members? That will be determined on a case-by-case basis, came the reply, which effectively meant that most species would avoid contact to prevent being seen as supporting humanity's position. The session concluded with formal pronouncements and procedural votes, but Sarah barely heard them. Her mind was already racing ahead to the conversations she would need to have with Earth Command, the explanations she would need to provide to a planet that had invested so much hope in galactic integration. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, several approached the human delegation. The Altarian representative, a vaguely humanoid being with golden skin and large, multifaceted eyes, stopped beside Sarah's seat. Ambassador Chun, he said in a species' characteristic whisper-soft voice, my government finds this decision regrettable. We have always valued our trade relationship with Earth. Thank you, Ambassador Keflon. I hope that relationship can continue despite today's events. The Altarian's head tendrils quivered in what Sarah had learned was equivalent to a nod. Perhaps discreetly. These are complicated times. Even this small show of support was welcome, but Sarah knew it wouldn't change anything substantial. The council had made its decision based on fear and misunderstanding, and humanity would pay the price. Colonel Rodriguez gathered their materials, while Sarah exchanged polite farewells with the few delegates willing to acknowledge them. The walk to their shuttle felt longer than usual, each step carrying them further from the community humanity had worked so hard to join. "What's our next move?" Rodriguez asked once they were secured in their diplomatic craft and heading for the jump point. Sarah stared out at the stars, each point of light representing worlds and civilizations that would now view humanity with suspicion. "We comply with their demands, exactly as specified. We pull back our forces, halt military construction, and reduce our fleet presence to the absolute minimum. That's going to leave us vulnerable if your sensor data is accurate." "I know." Sarah's voice was quiet, but her expression was resolute. "We'll have to find other ways to prepare." The journey back to Earth took 6 days through the established jump routes. 6 days of encrypted communications with Earth Command and detailed reports on the Council's decision. By the time their shuttle entered Earth's atmosphere, the news had already broken across human space. Protesters gathered outside government buildings, some demanding stronger action against the Council, others calling for complete withdrawal from galactic affairs. Sarah's first meeting was with Admiral Patricia Hayes, head of Earth Defense Command and one of the architects of humanity's military expansion. The Admiral's office overlooked the Pacific Ocean from its perch in the rebuilt San Francisco complex, and late afternoon sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows as Sarah delivered her report. "So they want us to roll over and play dead while an unknown force builds up for attack," Admiral Hayes said after Sarah finished. "Typical political thinking." "They don't believe the threat exists," Sarah replied. "And even if they did, they see our preparations as more dangerous than any hypothetical enemy." Admiral Hayes stood and walked to the windows, her reflection overlaying the ocean view. At 63, she had served through humanity's first contact with alien species and the subsequent integration into galactic society. She understood both the opportunities and the costs of that relationship. "How long do we have?" she asked. 7 days to begin withdrawal, 30 days to complete it. Full compliance with the expansion ban must be verified within 60 days. "And if we refuse?" Sarah had anticipated this question. "Military action by Council forces. We might be able to handle any single Council fleet, but not a coalition. And even if we won, we'd be branded as aggressors throughout the galaxy." The Admiral turned back to face her. "What about your back-channel contacts? Any chance of changing minds? The Altarians are sympathetic, but won't risk their own standing. The hegemony species are solid against us. The synth actively promoted our suspension." Sarah shook her head. "We're diplomatically isolated." Admiral Hayes returned to her desk and activated a holographic display showing the disposition of human forces throughout known space. Red indicators marked bases and ships that would need to be withdrawn under the Council's terms. The scope of the pullback was staggering. "We'll comply," the Admiral decided. "Full withdrawal as specified. But I want contingency plans for rapid redeployment if the situation changes." "That could be seen as preparing to violate the agreement," Sarah warned. "Only if they find out. And given their apparent inability to detect unknown fleets at the galactic rim, I'm not overly concerned about their intelligence capabilities." Over the following days, humanity began its retreat. Military bases were mothballed or demolished, their equipment and personnel transferred to systems within the permitted zones. Advanced warships pulled back from forward positions, consolidating around Earth and the handful of other human colonies. To outside observers, it looked like a species accepting its diminished role in galactic affairs. The reality was more complex. Admiral Hayes and her staff worked around the clock on what they privately called Project Silent Shield. If humanity couldn't maintain an open military presence in threatened regions, they would find other ways to monitor and respond to potential dangers. Automated sensor platforms, disguised as commercial satellites, were deployed along trade routes. Volunteer crews on merchant vessels began carrying sealed orders to be opened only under specific circumstances. Research stations that appeared to be studying stellar phenomena actually housed military communication equipment and weapons caches. Most importantly, humanity's newest and most advanced ships didn't withdraw to Earth. Instead, they disappeared entirely, officially listed as lost to navigation errors or mechanical failures. In reality, they had been equipped with experimental stealth systems and sent to patrol the regions where the mysterious energy signatures had been detected. The deception required unprecedented coordination across multiple agencies and departments. Every communication was encrypted multiple times, every operation planned to look like legitimate civilian activity. It was risky, complex, and absolutely necessary if humanity was to have any chance of detecting and responding to the threat they believed was coming. 3 weeks into the withdrawal process, the first confirmation arrived. Captain Elena Vasquez commanded the stealth reconnaissance ship Whisper, one of 12 vessels operating under Project Silent Shield's mandate. Her ship was designed to be invisible to conventional sensors, a ghost ship that could gather intelligence without being detected. For 2 weeks, she had been investigating the region where the original anomalous readings had been strongest. Contact, her sensor officer announced during what should have been a routine patrol. Multiple large objects at extreme range, bearing 27 Mark-8. Captain Vasquez moved to the sensor station, studying the readings that appeared on the displays. Configuration? Unknown, sir. The signatures don't match any database entries. Size estimates suggest vessels much larger than anything in the Council databases. How much larger? The sensor officer rechecked his readings before responding. Preliminary estimates suggest dreadnought class or above, possibly super dreadnoughts. Captain Vasquez felt her pulse quicken. Super dreadnoughts were theoretical constructs, ships so large that no known species had the industrial capacity to build them. The largest vessels in Council service were barely half the size these readings suggested. Are they moving? Negative, sir. Stationary relative to our position. But, Captain, the sensor officer paused, his expression troubled. There are a lot of them. Initial count suggests at least 30 large vessels, possibly more obscured by the group's energy signature. 30 super dreadnoughts would represent a fleet capable of conquering entire star systems single-handedly. If these readings were accurate, humanity had been right to prepare for war. Begin detailed recording, Captain Vasquez ordered. Full spectrum analysis, gravitational mapping, everything our systems can provide. And prep a messenger drone for immediate deployment. The Whisper spent 6 hours gathering intelligence on the mysterious fleet, careful to maintain maximum distance while collecting the most detailed information possible. The data that emerged painted an alarming picture of technological sophistication that far exceeded anything seen in Council space. The unknown vessels used power sources that generated energy signatures unlike any known technology. Their hull configurations suggested design principles that differed radically from established shipbuilding techniques. Most disturbing of all, passive scans detected what appeared to be construction activity, suggesting the fleet was still growing. When the messenger drone finally departed for Earth, it carried information that would vindicate humanity's warnings and prove the Council's decision had been a catastrophic mistake. But it also carried the knowledge that the threat was far worse than anyone had imagined. The drone's journey would take 12 days through the circuitous route necessary to avoid Council monitoring. 12 days during which the Whisper and her sister ships would continue their lonely vigil, watching and waiting as an unknown enemy prepared for war in the darkness between the stars. On Earth, diplomatic and military leaders continued the careful dance of apparent compliance while maintaining hidden readiness. They had no idea that their worst fears were about to be confirmed, or that the time for preparation was rapidly running out. The aliens at the galactic rim had finished their construction phase. Soon, they would begin their advance toward inhabited space, and humanity would be the only force positioned to detect their approach. The Council's decision to suspend Earth's membership hadn't just isolated humanity politically. It had made them the galaxy's unwitting first line of defense against an enemy that threatened to destroy everything the Council claimed to protect. The emergency session convened in the deepest levels of Earth Defense Command, 3 kilometers beneath the Colorado Mountains. Admiral Hayes sat at the head of a table, surrounded by humanity's top military and scientific minds, their faces illuminated by the holographic display showing Captain Vasquez's reconnaissance data. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Hayes began, "what you're about to see justifies every decision we've made over the past month." Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, Director of Xenotechnology Research, leaned forward as the data began playing. Her expertise in alien technology had made her invaluable during humanity's integration into galactic society, but nothing in her experience had prepared her for what the sensors had recorded. "The energy signatures are completely unknown," she said, studying the spectral analysis. "These aren't variations of existing technology. They represent entirely new principles of physics." General Robert Chun, Sarah's brother and head of strategic operations, focused on the tactical implications. 30 confirmed super dreadnoughts, with construction activity suggesting more ships being built. If each vessel matches our estimates for firepower and defensive capabilities, they could overwhelm the combined Council fleet. "What about their location?" asked Colonel Patricia Williams, Director of Intelligence Operations. "Are they positioned for a specific target?" Admiral Hayes manipulated the display, showing the unknown fleet's position relative to inhabited systems. They're approximately 40 light-years from the nearest Council territory, but their location gives them multiple approach vectors. They could strike the Kelhari systems, the Zephyrian trade routes, or even make a direct assault on Nexus Prime. Dr. Morrison highlighted sections of the energy readings. The construction signatures suggest they're not just building ships. These patterns indicate infrastructure development, shipyards, manufacturing facilities, possibly even habitat modules. They're establishing a permanent presence. The implications were staggering. This wasn't a raiding force or exploration fleet. The unknown aliens were building a forward base for large-scale operations, positioning themselves to threaten the entire galactic community. "How long before they're ready to move?" General Chen asked. "Unknown," admitted Dr. Morrison. "Without understanding their technology, we can't predict their construction timeline. But based on the energy expenditure we're detecting, I'd estimate weeks rather than months." Admiral Hayes stood and walked to a secondary display showing human force deployments. The official withdrawal had left Earth's military concentrated in a handful of systems, appearing to comply with Council demands while maintaining hidden assets throughout the region. "We need more information," she decided. "I'm authorizing Operation Deep Watch. We'll deploy additional stealth reconnaissance ships to monitor their activities and try to determine their intentions." "That's extremely risky," Colonel Williams warned. "If they detect our ships, it could provoke the very attack we're trying to prevent." "The risk of ignorance is greater than the risk of discovery," Admiral Hayes replied. "We need to understand what we're facing." Over the following week, 3 more stealth ships joined the Whisper in monitoring the unknown fleet. Each vessel was equipped with the most advanced sensor technology humanity possessed, their crews handpicked for their skill and discretion. The intelligence they gathered painted an increasingly alarming picture. The alien fleet wasn't just large, it was growing rapidly. Construction bays worked around the clock, assembling vessels that dwarfed anything in human or Council databases. Automated systems appeared to be building the ships without direct supervision, suggesting a level of technological automation that exceeded even the Synth Collective's capabilities. More disturbing was the evidence of organization and planning. The fleet's formation wasn't random. Ships were positioned in clear attack formations, suggesting they were preparing for immediate deployment. Supply convoys moved between construction facilities and combat vessels, stockpiling resources for extended operations. Captain Vasquez transmitted her observations in tightly encrypted bursts, each message adding to the growing understanding of the threat. The alien technology operated on principles that defied conventional understanding, using energy sources that appeared to violate known physics and defensive systems that seemed impenetrable to standard weapons. They're not just technologically superior, Dr. Morrison reported during another emergency briefing. They appear to have solved fundamental problems that our best scientists consider impossible. Their power generation efficiency alone suggests they've mastered controlled matter-antimatter reactions on a scale we can barely imagine. What about communications? General Chen asked. Any indication of their intentions or identity? Nothing, Colonel Williams replied. No electromagnetic emissões, no quantum entanglement implementing signatures, no recognizable communication protocols. Either they use technology we can't detect, or they maintain complete communication silence. Admiral Hayes studied the latest reconnaissance reports, her expression growing more concerned with each detail. We need to contact the Council. Whatever our diplomatic status, they need to know about this threat. Sarah Chun, who had remained on Earth since the Council session, looked up from her own analysis of the political situation. They won't listen. The Kelhari ambassador made it clear that any further unsubstantiated claims would be seen as attempts to manipulate Council policy. Even with this evidence, especially with this evidence, they'll claim we fabricated it to justify our military expansion. Sarah's voice carried the frustration of someone who understood political reality all too well. The Council has invested too much in their decision to reverse it now. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity possessed evidence of an imminent threat to galactic civilization, but their warnings would be dismissed as propaganda. The very isolation imposed by the Council's decision had made it impossible for Earth to fulfill its responsibility to warn other species. Then, we prepare to face them alone, Admiral Hayes said finally. How long do we have? Dr. Morrison consulted her latest analysis. Based on construction patterns and energy expenditure trends, I estimate 2 to 3 weeks before they achieve operational readiness. After that, they could begin moving at any time. That's not enough time to significantly increase our forces, General Chen observed. We'll have to work with existing assets. Admiral Hayes activated a new display showing Project Silent Shield's hidden deployments. We have advantages they don't know about. Stealth technology, dispersed assets, and, most importantly, we know they're coming. The next phase of preparation began immediately. Every available resource was directed toward readying humanity's defenses while maintaining the appearance of compliance with Council restrictions. Hidden weapons caches were activated, volunteer crews received advanced training, and communication networks were tested and retested. The stealth reconnaissance ships continued their vigil, providing real-time intelligence on alien activities. Captain Vasquez and her counterparts became humanity's early warning system, their ships positioned to detect the first signs of enemy movement. 2 weeks after the initial discovery, those signs appeared. Movement in the alien fleet, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson from the stealth ship Shadow. Multiple large vessels changing position, heading toward the galactic plane. The message reached Earth Defense Command within hours, triggering emergency protocols that had been planned but hoped would never be needed. Admiral Hayes assembled her senior staff in the command center, watching as real-time data painted a picture of an alien force beginning its advance. Confirmed count is 43 large vessels. Captain Vasquez reported from her position closest to the alien fleet. They're moving in formation, maintaining strict electromagnetic discipline. Estimated speed suggests they'll reach the outer colonies within 6 days. Dr. Morrison analyzed the movement patterns, her expertise in alien technology providing crucial insights. Their formation is optimized for mutual support and concentrated firepower. This isn't exploration or reconnaissance. This is an invasion force. Target assessment? Admiral Hayes asked. Unknown, General Chen replied. Their current heading could take them to multiple Council territories. We won't know their specific target until they're much closer. Admiral Hayes made the decision that would define humanity's role in the coming conflict. Signal all silent shield assets. Begin Phase 2 deployment immediately. Throughout human space, dormant systems activated, and hidden forces began moving toward predetermined positions. The merchant vessels carrying sealed orders opened them to find weapons and communication equipment. Research stations revealed their true purpose as military outposts. Most importantly, humanity's most advanced warships emerged from their hiding places to take up positions along the aliens' probable approach routes. The deployment was masterful in its complexity and terrible in its necessity. Humanity was preparing for war against an enemy that outclassed them technologically and numerically, with no support from the galactic community they were defending. Sir, Colonel Williams said, I recommend one more attempt to contact the Council. Even if they don't believe us, they need to be warned. Admiral Hayes nodded. Do it. Send everything we have, sensor data, analysis, threat projections. Make it clear this isn't a political maneuver. The transmission to Nexus Prime contained terabytes of information, carefully organized to demonstrate the reality and severity of the threat. Sarah Chun personally crafted the accompanying message, using every diplomatic skill she possessed to convey urgency without appearing manipulative. The response came within 12 hours. The Council acknowledges receipt of Earth's communication, Chancellor Vexhai's message stated formally. However, given recent events and humanity's suspended status, this information cannot be considered reliable. The Council advises Earth to focus on complying with existing restrictions rather than creating new crises. The dismissal was complete and final. Humanity would face the coming storm alone, protected only by their own forces and the preparations they had made in secret. They've sealed their own fate, Admiral Hayes said quietly after reading the Council's response. When those ships arrive, the Council will learn the price of willful blindness. General Chen studied the tactical displays, showing projected alien movements and human defensive positions. Our forces are in position, but we're still vastly outnumbered. Even with our advantages, this is going to be costly. Then, we'd better make sure it counts, Admiral Hayes replied. Signal all commands. Operation Silent Guardian is now active. We engage only when attacked, but when we do engage, we hit them with everything we have. The final preparations consumed the remaining time before contact. Weapon systems were tested and retested, communication protocols verified, and backup plans developed for every conceivable scenario. Humanity's military had never been more ready for battle. But the enemy they faced represented challenges that no amount of preparation could fully address. Captain Vasquez and her reconnaissance ships maintained their watch as the alien fleet approached inhabited space. The enemy vessels moved with mechanical precision, their formation unchanged despite the journey across light years of empty space. Whatever species controlled these ships, they possessed discipline and organization that spoke of long experience with large-scale military operations. New contact. Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported from his position monitoring the fleet's flank. Additional vessels joining the formation from Galactic North. Count is now 67 large ships, plus approximately 100 smaller escorts. The alien force had grown to fleet strength, capable of overwhelming any single council member's defenses. More alarming was the implication that they had forces stationed throughout the galactic rim, coordinating their movements for maximum impact. Estimated time to contact with outer system defense platforms? Admiral Hayes asked. 18 hours, came the reply. They'll reach the Kepler Station perimeter first. Kepler Station was a human research facility that officially studied stellar phenomena, but actually served as an early warning post for exactly this type of threat. Its destruction would be the first blow in what promised to be a devastating conflict. Admiral Hayes looked around the command center at the men and women who would guide humanity's response to the invasion. They were experienced professionals who understood the stakes, but she could see the weight of responsibility in their faces. They were about to fight a war that would determine not just humanity's survival, but the fate of galactic civilization itself. All stations report ready, General Chen announced. Silent Guardian assets are in position and awaiting orders. Very well, Admiral Hayes said, her voice carrying the authority of years of military command. Ladies and gentlemen, humanity is about to prove why we earned our place in this galaxy, even if others refuse to acknowledge it. When those ships attack, we show them what it means to threaten Earth and her allies. The countdown to contact had begun. Soon, the aliens who had spent so long preparing in the darkness would discover that humanity had been preparing too, and that their intended victims were ready to fight back with a ferocity that would surprise everyone, including the species that had dismissed Earth's warnings as fabrications. The silence that had hidden humanity's preparations was about to be broken by the thunder of interstellar war. The first shots of the war were fired at 0347 hours Galactic Standard Time, when unknown vessels opened fire on Kepler Station without warning or communication. The research facility's defensive shields collapsed within minutes under the assault of weapons that operated on principles no Council species had ever encountered. Captain Maria Santos watched the destruction from the bridge of her concealed destroyer Defiant, one of 6 human warships positioned throughout the outer system to observe and respond to exactly this scenario. Her orders were clear: gather intelligence on alien capabilities while remaining hidden, engaging only if directly threatened. Energy weapons of unknown configuration, her tactical officer reported, analyzing the attack on Kepler Station. Power output exceeds our heaviest plasma cannons by a factor of 8. The station never had a chance. What about defensive capabilities? Captain Santos asked, watching as the alien ships methodically destroyed every trace of the research facility. Preliminary scans suggest energy shielding significantly more advanced than our own. Standard kinetic penetrators and energy weapons might not be effective. The implications were sobering. Humanity's technological advantage had always been marginal compared to more advanced Council species, but these aliens appeared to have leapfrogged everyone by centuries. If their defensive systems were as advanced as their weapons, conventional tactics would be useless. Signal burst to Fleet Command, Captain Santos ordered. Confirm enemy capabilities exceed projections. Recommend immediate implementation of Protocol 7. Protocol 7 represented humanity's most desperate tactical option: coordinated strikes using experimental weapons that might penetrate alien defenses, accepting massive casualties to achieve strategic objectives. It was a plan born of desperation and necessity, designed for exactly this type of technological mismatch. Throughout the system, human forces received the activation order and began moving toward their assigned positions. The alien fleet's advance had triggered a carefully orchestrated response that would test every assumption about space combat and survival against impossible odds. Admiral Hayes monitored the battle from Earth Defense Command, watching as real-time reports painted a picture of alien capabilities that exceeded their worst projections. The enemy ships moved with mechanical precision, their weapons systems operating with efficiency that suggested complete automation or hive mind coordination. They're not just attacking Kepler Station, General Chen reported. Long-range sensors show similar assaults beginning at Tau Ceti, Proxima Centauri, and the Arcturus trading post. This is a coordinated offensive across multiple light years. Council territories? Admiral Hayes asked. Not yet, but if they maintain their current heading, the Kelhari systems will be in range within 12 hours. Dr. Morrison studied the tactical data streaming from the battle zones, her expertise in alien technology providing crucial insights into enemy capabilities. Their coordination suggests quantum entanglement communication, or something even more advanced. No light speed delays, no communication lag. They're operating as a unified force across impossible distances. The first human casualties came at Proxima Centauri, where two destroyers attempted to engage an alien squadron that had overwhelmed the orbital defense platforms. The human ships lasted less than 10 minutes against weapons that seemed to ignore their energy shields and armor plating entirely. Heavy losses at Proxima, Colonel Williams reported grimly. Both destroyers destroyed, minimal damage to enemy forces. Their weapons appear to disrupt matter at the molecular level. Admiral Hayes felt the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. Every ship lost represented hundreds of trained personnel, irreplaceable assets in humanity's limited fleet. But the intelligence they were gathering with their lives was proving invaluable for planning the larger defense. All units are to maintain engagement protocols, she ordered. Continue gathering data on enemy capabilities. We need to understand how their technology works before we can develop effective countermeasures. The sacrifice of human crews continued throughout the outer systems as reconnaissance ships and defensive platforms collected information on alien weapons, shields, and tactical doctrines. Each engagement revealed new aspects of enemy technology while demonstrating the vast gap between human and alien capabilities. But the aliens had made one crucial mistake. Their overwhelming technological superiority had bred arrogance, causing them to advance with minimal caution or tactical flexibility. They treated human forces as negligible threats, ignoring the possibility that their enemies might have hidden assets or unconventional strategies. Captain Elena Vasquez exploited that arrogance during the Battle of Wolf 359, where her stealth ship Whisper had been monitoring alien movements for weeks. When an enemy squadron moved to destroy the human colony on the system's fourth planet, she positioned her vessel directly in their path and waited. Range to lead ship, 5,000 kilometers, and closing, her tactical officer reported. Still no indication they've detected us. Steady as she goes, Captain Vasquez replied, watching as the massive alien dreadnought approached her tiny ship. Wait for optimal targeting solution. The Whisper carried an experimental weapon that had never been tested in combat, a quantum disruption torpedo designed to collapse the molecular bonds holding matter together. Dr. Morrison's team had developed it based on analysis of alien technology, hoping to turn their enemies' own principles against them. Optimal range achieved, the tactical officer announced. Target lock. Fire. The torpedo launched at point-blank range, its exotic warhead designed to penetrate energy shields by existing partially outside normal space-time until the moment of detonation. The alien dreadnought had no time to react before the weapon struck its forward section and detonated. The result exceeded every projection. The quantum disruption cascade spread through the alien ship's hull, causing catastrophic structural failure that tore the massive vessel apart in seconds. The explosion was so violent that nearby escort ships suffered damage from debris and exotic radiation. Direct hit, the tactical officer shouted. Enemy dreadnought destroyed. Secondary explosions in the escort formation. Captain Vasquez allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before ordering immediate withdrawal. The Whisper's stealth systems would hide them from retaliation, but the aliens would undoubtedly investigate the destruction of their flagship. Humanity had just proved that the enemy could be hurt, but they had also revealed the existence of weapons that would make them a priority target. News of the victory reached Earth Defense Command within hours, providing the first hope since the invasion began. Admiral Hayes studied the battle reports, analyzing the implications of humanity's first successful engagement. How many quantum disruption torpedoes do we have? She asked Dr. Morrison. 17 prototypes, plus manufacturing capability for perhaps 50 more if we convert our entire production infrastructure, came the reply. But they require exotic materials that are extremely difficult to acquire. Not enough to defeat their entire fleet, General Chen observed, but enough to hurt them badly if we use them correctly. Admiral Hayes turned to the strategic display, showing alien movements throughout the region. The enemy fleet had paused its advance after the loss of the dreadnought, apparently reassessing human capabilities. The delay provided precious time for preparation and reinforcement. Signal all Silent Guardian assets, she ordered. Phase 3 is now active. Begin convergence on the Centauri Defense Zone. The Centauri Defense Zone represented humanity's primary fallback position, a region of space where hidden weapon platforms, concealed ships, and automated defenses had been secretly deployed over months of preparation. If the aliens wanted to reach the inner colonies and Earth itself, they would have to fight through the most heavily defended space in human history. The convergence began immediately, with ships and assets emerging from hiding throughout human space to take up positions in the defense zone. Merchant vessels revealed their true nature as armed auxiliaries. Research stations activated weapon systems that had been disguised as scientific equipment, and asteroid mining facilities opened hidden missile bays. Most importantly, the quantum disruption torpedoes were distributed among the most skilled and experienced crews, each weapon representing a chance to inflict decisive damage on enemy forces. The torpedoes required perfect positioning and timing to be effective, but in the right hands they could destroy ships that conventional weapons couldn't even scratch. The aliens resumed their advance after a 6-hour pause, their formation noticeably more cautious than before. They had learned to respect human capabilities, but their numerical and technological advantages remained overwhelming. The question was whether humanity's preparations would be sufficient to stop an enemy that outclassed them in almost every measurable category. The answer came at the Battle of Centauri Station, where 67 alien ships encountered the largest human fleet ever assembled for combat. Admiral Patricia Hayes had transferred her flag to the battlecruiser Indomitable, leading from the front in a battle that would determine humanity's survival. Enemy fleet at maximum sensor range, the tactical officer reported. They're advancing in standard formation, speed consistent with previous engagements. Admiral Hayes studied the display, showing both fleets maneuvering for position. The humans were outnumbered 3-1, but they held defensive positions among the asteroid fields and debris clouds that would complicate enemy targeting and provide concealment for surprise attacks. All ships are to follow Attack Plan Omega, she ordered. Hit and run tactics, maximum mobility, focus fire on isolated targets. We're not trying to win a stand-up fight. We're trying to hurt them badly enough to make them reconsider their invasion. The battle began with long-range missile exchanges that demonstrated the gap between human and alien technology. Human weapons detonated harmlessly against enemy shields, while alien return fire devastated anything it touched. But the humans had advantages their enemies didn't expect: superior mobility, better knowledge of the local area, and tactics refined through centuries of military innovation. Captain Vasquez led the first attack wave, her stealth ship and 5 companions approaching the alien fleet's flank while hidden among asteroid debris. The quantum disruption torpedoes they carried represented humanity's best hope of inflicting decisive damage on enemy forces. Target the largest ship in their formation, Admiral Hayes ordered. If we could take out their flagship, it might disrupt their coordination. The attack required perfect timing and coordination. The stealth ships would have to penetrate deep into the alien formation, achieve optimal firing positions, and escape before enemy forces could respond. Any mistake would result in the loss of irreplaceable ships and weapons. All units report ready, Captain Vasquez transmitted. Beginning attack, run now. The 6 ships emerged from concealment simultaneously, their quantum disruption torpedoes launching at point-blank range against targets that had no warning of the attack. The results were devastating. 4 alien capital ships destroyed outright, 2 more crippled by cascade explosions that spread through their formations. But the cost was severe. 3 human ships were caught by enemy return fire and vaporized instantly, their crews dying before they could even transmit damage reports. The remaining ships escaped, but Barely, their stealth systems pushed beyond design limits by the intensity of alien sensor sweeps. The loss of 6 capital ships sent shock waves through the alien fleet, causing them to halt their advance and adopt defensive formations. For the first time since the invasion began, they appeared uncertain, their mechanical precision replaced by something resembling caution or even fear. They're regrouping, General Chun observed from his position on Earth. This might be our chance to contact the Council again. With proof of the invasion and evidence of our capabilities, they might finally listen. Admiral Hayes considered the suggestion while watching the tactical display. The battle was far from over, but humanity had proved they could hurt the aliens despite technological disadvantages. More importantly, they had demonstrated that the threat was real and immediate. Send another transmission to Nexus Prime, she decided. Include everything: battle footage, casualty reports, alien technology analysis. Make it clear that this isn't a human problem anymore. It's a galactic crisis that threatens everyone. The transmission reached the council chambers as delegates were debating trade regulations and territorial disputes, their attention focused on mundane concerns that seemed absurdly trivial in light of the war raging at the galactic rim. Chancellor Vexhai called for order as the human message began playing on the chamber's displays. The footage was undeniable. Massive alien ships destroying human installations, weapons technology that exceeded anything in council databases, and tactical coordination that suggested a threat unlike anything previously encountered. Most shocking of all were the scenes of human forces engaging the invaders with technologies that appear to be based on alien principles. "This is unprecedented," the Kelhari ambassador sang, her melodic voice carrying notes of alarm. "If these readings are accurate, the threat exceeds our most pessimistic projections." The synth representative's holographic form flickered with what appeared to be electronic distress. "Our analysis confirms the authenticity of this data. The energy signatures match no known technology in our databases." Chancellor Vexhai's crystalline form shifted through several color changes as she processed the implications. How long until these forces reach council space? Based on their current rate of advance, the Trilaxian representative calculated, they will enter the outer Kelhari systems within 36 hours. The chamber erupted in confused discussions as the reality of the situation penetrated the delegates' awareness. The threat they had dismissed as human fabrication was bearing down on council space, and the species best prepared to resist, it had been diplomatically isolated and militarily constrained. "What is the status of human forces?" Chancellor Vexhai asked. The question was answered by Sarah Chun, who had maintained her diplomatic credentials despite her species' suspended status. "Earth Defense Command is fully engaged with enemy forces at multiple locations. Current estimates suggest human casualties exceed 30%, but they continue to resist. And their capabilities against these invaders? Limited, but effective under specific circumstances," Sarah replied honestly. "Humanity has developed countermeasures that can damage enemy ships, but our forces are vastly outnumbered and outgunned. We need immediate support from council fleets if we're to have any chance of stopping this invasion." The request hung in the air as delegates struggled with the political and military implications. Supporting humanity meant acknowledging that their suspension had been a mistake, but refusing support meant facing the alien invasion without the species best equipped to fight it. "The Council will convene an emergency session," Chancellor Vexhai announced. "All fleet assets are to be placed on high alert pending our decision." The session lasted 18 hours, with heated debates between species that wanted to maintain their previous positions and those who recognized the changed circumstances. In the end, survival instincts overcame political considerations. "The Council hereby reinstates humanity's membership with full status," Chancellor Vexhai announced. "Furthermore, we request immediate coordination with Earth Defense Command for joint operations against the invasion force." The decision came too late to prevent the aliens from reaching Kelhari space, but It arrived in time to coordinate a defense that might save both human and alien civilizations. Admiral Hayes received the Council's message as her forces regrouped after the Battle of Centauri Station. Her fleet battered but still functional after inflicting severe damage on enemy forces. "Fleet command to all units," she broadcast. "The Council has requested joint operations against the invasion force. We are no longer alone in this fight." The combined fleet that assembled at the Kelhari border represented the largest military force in galactic history. Ships from dozens of species, weapon systems based on wildly different technological principles, and tactical doctrines that had never been tested in large-scale combat. But they shared a common enemy and a desperate need to prevent that enemy from reaching the populated core worlds. The final battle took place in the space between systems, where the alien fleet met a coalition force led by human commanders who had learned to hurt the invaders and alien ships whose capabilities complemented humanity's weaknesses. The fighting lasted 3 days and cost thousands of lives, but when it ended, the alien invasion had been broken. The survivors of the invasion force retreated toward the galactic rim, their coordination shattered, and their numbers reduced to a fraction of their original strength. They left behind wreckage that would take decades to analyze, and questions that might never be answered, but they also left behind proof that the galaxy's diverse species could work together when faced with an existential threat. In the aftermath, as rescue ships searched for survivors and engineers began analyzing captured alien technology, the Council formally apologized for their treatment of humanity. The species that had been dismissed as dangerously aggressive had become the galaxy's saviors, their warnings vindicated by events that could have been prevented if anyone had listened. "We owe Earth a debt that can never be fully repaid," Chancellor Vexai admitted during the post-war ceremonies. Their vigilance and sacrifice saved not just their own species, but all of us. Admiral Hayes, now bearing the title of Supreme Allied Commander, stood before the assembled delegates with the quiet dignity of someone who had seen too much war, but understood its necessity. "Humanity never wanted to fight alone," she said simply. "We're stronger together than we ever could be apart." The lesson was learned, but at a cost measured in destroyed worlds and lost lives. The galaxy had survived its first test of unity, but everyone understood that other threats might emerge from the darkness between stars. When they did, the species of the galaxy would face them together, guided by the hard-won wisdom that strength comes not from isolation, but from standing united against those who would destroy everything worth protecting. Humanity had left the Council in silence, but they had returned in triumph, proving that sometimes the greatest victories come not from being heard, but from doing what needs to be done regardless of whether anyone is listening.